Also left Kathy's car with surprises to make things worse. I had some fun at my wife's expense the day before my trip. I sat down disappointed at home after work. My wife noticed and asked, "What's wrong?" Something went wrong at work today. The clients we were going to meet canceled. I joked that the company is missing out on a great growth opportunity because I won't be going on that trip. Her expression showed shock and fear. That's when I realized she was probably trying to get me out of town so she and Gary could go to Hawaii. Can't they send you to reconcile with those clients? You and your team worked hard on this project. It would be a shame to waste all that hard work, she said, trying to shame me. I was furious. When she had no shame, how could she talk about it? Her and Gary would pay dearly. I laughed and told her, "Just kidding, honey. The trip continues. No worries." She smiled, relieved. "You had me going there briefly. Are you all packed?" "Yeah, just throw a few things in my carry-on and I'm good." "Will you miss me greatly when I'm away? Any plans? A gal's night out?" "I'll just be here, waiting for my dear hubby to come back," she said. God, I almost burst out laughing at that, but I was too mad. The next day, my wife drove me to the airport and dropped me off. I gave her a long, passionate kiss, my hands caressing her sweet face. It would be the last kiss I'd ever give her, so I wanted it to be memorable. I joined the rest of the group, and we boarded the flight. It was a smooth ride, and once we landed and checked into the hotel, I called home, using the hotel room phone. No one picked up, so I left a message. "Honey, I did something dumb. I left my phone in the cab and won't be able to call you until I get it back or get a new one. If you need me, leave a message at the front desk, and I'll call you later." I hadn't actually forgotten my phone, I just needed an excuse not to take her calls. The next day arrived, and I made sure to turn off my phone. I wouldn't be disturbed during my meetings with clients. When I got back to my hotel room, I checked for messages, but there were none. So I turned on my phone and found no messages from my wife or anyone else. Well, maybe they managed to pass through airport security. The following day, the meetings went even better than the first ones, and we returned to the hotel early. There were several messages waiting for me on the hotel room phone. One was from my wife, another from her father, and the third from a DEA agent, which made me smile. I then checked my cell phone and saw several messages waiting for me. I listened to the messages on the hotel phone. The first was from my wife, and she was crying. "Baby, it's me. I'm in big trouble and I really need you. Please come home now. Please." After that, all I heard was crying. The next message was from my soon-to-be ex-father-in-law. "Hank, your wife has been trying to get in touch with you. She's been arrested and needs you home now. Please give me a call when you have a chance." The final message was from a DEA agent named DeFranco. He identified himself as Agent DeFranco and wanted to discuss my wife's arrest on pills charges. He provided his contact information and some other details. I was thrilled and couldn't stop smiling, but I had to maintain serious demeanor around my colleagues. Everything had gone according to plan so far, but I still needed to act surprised and shocked to avoid suspicion that I was involved. The next morning, I contacted my boss and informed him of a serious family issue without providing specifics. He agreed to let me leave the meetings temporarily to handle the emergency but stressed the importance of returning promptly to finalize deals with the clients. I caught the first flight back home, and upon landing, I retrieved my lost cell phone and called my father-in-law. "What's happening? I received your message, but I can't believe it. She does not use any substance. Did this happen at the health club?" I knew exactly where the incident occurred. "No, she was traveling with a friend to Hawaii and they were stopped at security where they found some illegal things on her and her friend," her father said in a low voice, sounding embarrassed. "Hold on a second, just hold on. She told me she was going to be home and didn't have any plans." "Who was this friend she was going to Hawaii with?" "I bet one of her girlfriends talked her into going and got her into all this mess," I replied. Her father hesitated for a moment. "I know it was with someone else. The important thing to remember here, Hank, is that she's in trouble and needs your help. She loves you, and I know you love her too," he said. I stopped him. "Dad, what are you hiding? With whom was she traveling?" I shouted into the phone, too satisfied. His throat cleared after stillness. "Gary was her tour companion. He confessed to being arrested." I interrupted him again. "You're telling me your daughter, my wife, flew to Hawaii with another man while I worked hard to make a living? Pill possession gets her arrested. Is that your message?" I demanded. "Yes, I'm frightened to tell you," he said. I paused long. "I must speak to her lawyer and this DEA agent. After that, I'll chat to her." I thought, we'll see what happens, but she better have a good reason for going to Hawaii with another man and have substance. I cut off her father before he could react. At home, I saw over 20 messages and started playing them back. My first was about losing my phone. Kathy sent the next few thinking I would check our messages on my work trip. Some were from her father, and the others were from her lawyer begging me to contact her immediately. The lawyer wasn't in the office, so I arranged an appointment for the next morning. I called DA agent DeFranco and arranged to meet him downtown that afternoon. I hurriedly cleaned up and left, wondering if I had hidden my tracks to avoid being caught. Soon, in what I think was an interrogation room, Agent DeFranco entered with a folder. He stated he was glad you could visit me. He looked in the folder and asked, "I have some questions about your wife that I was hoping you could answer." My wife doesn't use drugs. She never took anything illicit, in my experience. To be honest, she drinks little. This must be a major mistake or misunderstanding. She's a yoga teacher. Why would she do illegal things? I tried to act, but Agent DeFranco didn't notice. Many poor decisions are made for stupid reasons. Did you know Gary was taking your wife to Hawaii? She said he was a friend, but Gary says they were on a romantic retreat. Do you know Gary? Were you aware of your wife's affair? Did you know the substance? He was now staring at me intently. I breathed deeply to calm down. All of this was several old buddies on one of my disposable phones to avoid being traced. I called a college friend I hadn't spoken to in 14 years initially. Steve was a party animal then. The fun guy. Tank, how are you? Steve didn't remember, but remembering about our college parties helped. Hank, it's all coming back to me. Those were fun times. Recently, what have you done? I soon updated him on my college activities. He said things hadn't gone as planned, but he's persevering. Why this call? It wasn't just nostalgia. I was wary about raising the real issue. My suggestion was to meet in person. I need aid, and I thought you would be the right guy. How about lunch and discussion? He hesitated, then said, anything for an old college friend we met a few days later near his office but away from mine. I needed his help since time was running out and I had no one else. I set up cameras and bugs in the bedroom and living room, anticipating they'd chat and do other stuff there. After week 1, Kathy's lawyer of my DeFranco conversation and the search the following day. Not pleased. If law enforcement approaches, I want to be there before you speak. Got it? Angered, I nodded. Let me clarify, I said. I want to know what caused my wife's arrest. I only know she was flying to Hawaii with Gary. Someone should explain how this transpired if either of you wants my help. Is my message clear? I can't discuss your wife's case, he said. Then I left. I then demanded to see her in jail. She entered a room with inmates meeting with relatives or lawyers at round metal tables with bolted down stools. She wore an orange jail jumpsuit, no makeup, and an unkempt ponytail. She looked weary, like she hadn't slept in days. Oh baby, I'm relieved you're here, she cried. I wanted to hug her, but a guard forbade it. This exacerbated her crying. Honey, we'll fix this. Right now I need your perspective. You're going to Hawaii with this guy, how? Asking gently. Her tears rose. Hank, I'm sorry. Sorry, so sorry. So it is. Gary, a pill peddler, was your lover. How could you? Didn't I please you? Am I not loved? I don't get him, you, or the medicines. What were you thinking? I stopped, knowing she couldn't respond. Please trust me, I've always loved you. Please forgive me, pleaded with me. I stared at her, then said, maybe I might have forgiven you, but you crushed my heart. Can't forgive you. The house locks will be changed, and I'll hire a divorce lawyer when I depart. All your stuff is going to your parents' house, because I want to delete you from my household. You're gone from me. I'm done with you. Tell your lawyer not to use me as a character witness, I won't praise you. Kathy, goodbye. I wish you well. She wailed and begged me to stay. I went home and packed her stuff, without looking back. I had a locksmith change all the locks the next day. Next week, a security company would install a good system. Within days, I packed most of her belongings for her parents' house. Kathy called several times, but I ignored them. No interest in chatting to her. After returning to work, we signed those key clients. This got me promoted and paid more. Kathy divorced easily without spousal support, but she had to pay her pills arrest legal fees. I wanted to stay away. There was too much evidence to go to trial, so her lawyer encouraged her to plead guilty for a shorter sentence. She was upset. Gary battled hard to prove his innocence but received a 15-year sentence while Kathy received 5. Kathy wanted to see me one more time before her punishment. I agreed, and we met at her lawyer's office 1 hour before court. She seemed tearful at me. Please know that Gary meant nothing to me, Hank. Always adored and always will love you. I'm sorry for hurting you. This wasn't meant to happen. I hope you'll forgive me, she murmured, nearly crying again. I need clarification, Kathy. Why you did it? Were you bored? Didn't I satisfy you in bed? Was it the joy of getting away with something wrong? What caused you to ruin our marriage? In despair, I asked. She regarded me. I have no idea why. Maybe it was the thrill of breaking the law. I always adored you. You didn't love me enough to do this, she said. I hope this is my final contact with Kathy. No contact from you. Consider what you lost for jail excitement. I believe those females will notice you and provide you. Some fantastic experiences, she cried again, this time in terror. I became VP after the company grew over the next 3 years. I was chosen to lead our New York office as we expanded. It meant selling my house, moving to Manhattan, and getting an apartment. Early on, I returned Kathy's letters without opening them. That chapter was ended, and I was ready to go on. 7 years in New York have been good. New York dating is good for me, and I'm single. Single. I dated a different woman every several months. No way was I getting married again and risking treachery. One time was enough. My assistant Amy arrived from the lobby as I received a call in my office. She said a woman below wants to talk to me. She calls herself Kathy. After a moment, I told her to send Kathy up with 2 security guards. I also assigned Amy a task. I composed it and gave it to her. Call me a few minutes after bringing her in, I added. Amy grinned after reading my writing. Kathy entered my office minutes later. She appeared at least 10 years older and had acquired unflattering weight. Her gorgeous long brown hair was now gray and tattered. I observed her sad eyes bags. Her attire were chic but modest and old-fashioned. Looking at her, I felt no love, hate, or pity. I was emotionally dry. Kathy, why are you here? I wanted to talk to Hank. I wanted to explain my experience. No idea what they were. And I don't know how they got in my suitcases. Gary must have smuggled them in without me knowing. I've never liked substance. I ask you to believe me. Kathy begged. Kathy, you ruined our marriage for a fling and lied about it. Why should I trust you now? Why did you seek me out to lie to me again? Don't understand. I adore you. I still do. I want our reunion. I want to fix it. My desk phone rang, so I put it on speaker. Yes, Amy, what's up? Stacy called to confirm that you should purchase 4 opening tickets because her parents are coming to town and want to meet you. Let her know I'll buy 4 tickets. Discover her parents' residence. Send her mother 12 flowers. I hung up and looked at Kathy. You said? Kathy was almost crying. Who's Stacy? She's someone I've been seeing lately, but you're not. Here to discuss my dating life. You said you still like me. I appreciate that. But I no longer like you. Finally, your dad told me about your arrest and your trip to Hawaii with Gary. After discovering your infidelity, I ended our relationship. Leave now. I'm done seeing you. Do you comprehend? I listened closely but had nothing to do with the drugs they found. I was framed. End your lies, Kathy. You cheated on me and lie now. Please leave without returning. I told security to arrest you if you return. Do you comprehend? She nodded while crying quietly. I led her to the door, and the security guys let her out. Amy arrived afterward. What was that about? I was closing a chapter. Discovered my wife's secret Hawaii vacation with her lover. I hid Diogs in their luggage, notified the DEA, and watched them be caught at the airport. She got 5 years, he got 15. The morning was crazy because our alarm clock didn't go off due to a power outage overnight. My wife and I had to rush and get ready for work. Her hurry was greater than mine because my employment starts at 9 a.m. and is only 15 minutes from our residence. My wife normally checks her email before work, but she was hurrying and forgot to shut down. As I was turning it off, I saw an email she received a few days earlier with the subject line "Aloha to a nice time." I opened it out of curiosity and found that my wife was organizing a trip to Hawaii with another man while I was on a 2-week business trip. My heart was broken by this knowledge. A little background. Over 12 years ago, mutual friends introduced Kathy, my wife, and me. They thought we clicked. We shared a love of fitness and health. I love hiking, mountain biking, and running, and I worked in marketing at a mid-size firm to grow. We had numerous interests and looked nice together. Kathy 5', has long brown hair, brown eyes, and an appealing physique. I am 6', with blonde hair, blue eyes, and athletic fitness. Was love at first sight? We had a strong friendship that led to passion. Several years passed. After marrying, I thought we were happy till today. After receiving this email, I recognized our marriage was in trouble. Gary and Kathy had been quietly planning a romantic holiday for a while. Despite knowing about my forthcoming business trip, which was a huge opportunity for me and the company, she traveled. I was preparing for a 2-week business trip with colleagues to land significant accounts. These transactions could lead to promotions and raises. I could only focus on this email now. I searched her previous emails for Gary's details. They found that she had organized their correspondence under travels. Right? Convenient? She's not tech savvy, but I use computers all the time, so I got around. She had clearly been with him for 6 months. But why? I saw no clear dissatisfaction. We appreciated each other's company in bed. What made her fall for another man? I had to work despite my racing mind. Before leaving, I copied all the emails onto a flash drive to analyze later and learn more about Gary and why she did this. After closing down her computer, I rushed to work thinking about her and Gary. After processing this knowledge, I became angry and wanted massive retaliation. I rarely use violence or seek revenge, but this was different. Her betrayal was horrible. I briefly wondered when and where it started, but decided it didn't matter. My goal was to learn more about Gary and make his life miserable. Though I considered it, I didn't want to hurt him. I preferred public humiliation for them both. I still needed to plan carefully. With 6 weeks to brainstorm, I closed my office door at work. Detailed information on Gary and their travels was sought. I thought of a method to disrupt their plans and reveal their affair in a way she couldn't refute. It was risky, but I wanted her to pay. I worked throughout the day, but I kept thinking about my plan. I stayed in my office for nearly an hour writing down what I needed and how to acquire it before leaving. I listed my plan's hazards. If things went wrong or I was detected, I could be jailed. Was willing to risk it. I wanted Kathy's email and computer to learn more about Gary. After considering downloading tools to hack her passwords, I realized it could leave a digital trail. I have to be careful to avoid detection. I had to find a way to get what I wanted without being found. In the following days, I paid cash for disposable cell phones and a small laptop to use at free Wi-Fi spots. Thus, my activities couldn't be linked to job or home. I bought many wireless video cameras and bugs to catch her bringing this a hole into our bed for illicit fun. The thought chilled me, but maybe they'd chat about their journey and provide me the facts I needed for my plan. I attempted to seem normal around my wife so she wouldn't think I knew about her affair. It was hard, but pretending became easy after a few weeks. I'd grin at her sweetly while privately resenting her dating another man. I guess I missed my acting calling. I called. Recordings showed nothing significant. I thought maybe they were meeting at his apartment to reduce the risk of their affair. However, the following week was different. We think she brought Gary over one late morning and spent nearly 2 hours cuddling in every position. It was disgusting to watch, but I had to see if they'd talk about their journey or reveal anything valuable. They didn't. The next week, I checked the cameras again and discovered they were back, but not close. Their forthcoming vacation was discussed. I required the flight number and departure time. My wife's joy as they planned was audible. I was outraged and considered hurting them, but I didn't. I intended long-term suffering for them. Even in death, this revenge would haunt them. I imagined smiling as I leant over my soon-to-be ex-wife, elderly and gray, lay on her deathbed and told her how I destroyed her Hawaii trip. I'd rise up, smile at her while she looked shocked, then leave. Now more. Unknown until I met with my father-in-law this morning. I still can't believe. She must have been duped. She's too good to get involved. I avoided overdoing it. I knew this person could recognize a liar, so I was careful. I suppose you didn't know. I hate to tell you, but your wife cheated on you with an illegal seller. We've searched his house and found additional tablets. Shortly we'll search yours. Let us in, or we'll seek a search warrant. Regardless, we'll search your property soon. Although her lawyer advised against it, I wanted to protect myself and appear better without hiding anything. I consented and returned to the house with hundreds of DEA and FBI officials and 2 of their dogs digging through everything. They grabbed her medical cabinet pill vials and other items. I informed, motivated than ever, I had one perilous assignment yet to complete. Gary became clearer to me. He and my wife are fitness club personal trainers. His propensity of seeking other men's wives is going to encounter a tough patch. He lives in a little condo complex near the club, so I watched him. I told my boss I had personal affairs to solve before our business trip, and took a day off. For several hours, I watched his home with a zooming digital camera. The 2-bedroom unit had no security cameras, and his neighbors looked to be at work during the day. This helped my secret intentions. During my discussion with Steve, I worried about my questions. That was my riskiest move, but if I got what I needed, it was worth it. I waved Steve to my table when he entered the restaurant. It was in the rear and quiet with only a few late lunchers. He said, "Long time no see, bro," as he approached. I was, direct and concise. Steve looked worn out like a Walking Dead extra. I wanted to be brief. Without his help, I'd have to look elsewhere. We talked about Steve's legendary college parties. He used to party a lot, but it seems to have worn him down. He looked at least 15 years older than his age. I needed to be clear, so I asked him why I had invited him to see if he or someone he knew might assist me secure party favors for a private event. I gave him a list and requested help. I promised to pay him for his aid. Steve looked at the list, shocked, then smiled. He eagerly offered to help, because it seemed like a fun party. He requested to bring a college friend. I agreed, relieved if he could get me the list items. I promised to supply party details once he had everything. After Steve sought funds to buy the items, I gave him an envelope with several $1,000s. He noted the party's size and agreed the cash was sufficient. I provided him my new cell phone number in case of complications and scheduled the swap for the following week. With everything arranged, we departed the restaurant. My wife and her lover were leaving the day after I departed on my trip, so everything had to go well. Steve got me everything I needed 2 weeks before my flight. I just needed to hide these materials until the right time. I left work early to examine my wife's packed suitcase 3 days before my trip. The adulterous woman's trip was planned. I carefully placed a few surprises in her, first as a goodbye. I hid them neatly so she wouldn't find them when packing or unpacking. It wasn't my goal for her to find them. I broke into Gary's house, another risky move. Being aware of his work schedule wasn't a problem. I'd never tried anything like this. I got a lockpick set and read an internet book. What you can buy online is astounding. I practiced locks at home and work, and I got good at it. I confidently informed my boss I needed an extended lunch break and went to Gary's unit with my lockpick set. I was shocked how quickly I picked the lock and entered his residence in over a minute. Speed was important since I needed to execute my plan quickly and undetected. I went straight to his bedroom with rubber gloves and retrieved his trip-ready luggage. I packed his bag with travel goodies like I did my wife's to make their trip memorable. After that, I found a coffee can in the kitchen. I dumped the coffee into a mixing bowl, placed some packets at the bottom of the can, refilled it, and put it back where I found it, making sure nothing was damaged. After fixing everything, I left Gary's and went home. I had one more task. A few days before my trip, I phoned a friend whose relative worked at the airport TSA. I knew everything about my wife and Gary's flight. Now it was about getting this information to the correct person without revealing its source. After contacting my acquaintance, I had to be careful about explaining where I received the information. I asked Jack for a favor, but keep this info private. I gave him flight info in Gary's name but not my wife's. Jack agreed to gently inform his cousin. I also removed all cameras and bugs to hide them. I